So we're finally here. The start of the Super Rugby playoffs. Look, I've spoken many times. It's 8 teams in the playoffs from a 12-team competition that is set to go to 11 too much. But that's for another time. And of course, this will be the last. This is almost certainly going to be the last time we'll see this particular playoff format. Of course, as I said, Super Rugby is going to lose the Melbourne Rebels next season. So, so we might as well talk about that. But first, of course, we should quickly mention the 4 teams that somehow managed to miss out. Of course, we'll start off with the bottom team, the Waratahs, who, it is just crazy to think that that this is the same team that beat the Crusaders twice during the season. I guess when you're looking just at the table, it's not particularly a surprise. But then again, you consider that the Crusaders, and then of course you've got to remember the Crusaders are the most successful team in Super Rugby history, and they were the reigning Super Rugby champions. And I think the Waratahs hadn't been the Crusaders since that 2014 final. So I guess it is a bit of a weird situation. Like they've had some bad losses. I think he won in the Fijian draw, but in the losses against the other Aussie teams, they generally by and large have been in the games, but they just never quite managed to clinch the results. And I think ultimately that's why they find themselves at the bottom. The coach is gone, and there's again another state of flux, and probably more New South. I guess. Actually, I should say, with the Rebels shutting down, I think maybe that it's a good thing for the Waratahs, because that means that their best players are going to have to stick it out in New South Wales. So we shall see. Crusaders, well, I've talked about them many times, and my last video didn't really get much hits, so I think people are sick of talking about the Crusaders, and you can watch Sky Sports for the Crusaders. So we'll move on. Western Force, well, I think they're pretty much where everyone expected them to be. It is hard to know whether they've improved or gone down. I mean, player pool over there is going to be a bit tricky. Look, I think there have been some at times they've shown some promise. I think they had that win they thrashed the Crusaders in Perth. Look, they're not going anywhere at this stage. I think that Australian Rugby and SANZAAR have learned their mistake from kicking them out the first time. They've got rich backers, and they still have very strong membership there. So, look, I think things are slowly brewing in Western Australia, and I think, I think we just gotta let it go and see how they develop. And I'm positive that things will improve for the Western Force, and they will make it to the. I think they will eventually make it into the playoffs, which will only be the second time they've done that. So. And finally, of course, Moana Pacifica, who have actually had it's hard to say this, but they've actually had their best season to date. I think, Tana Umaga has done a lot of good work with the team. I guess there's still a lot of question marks about their viability. Fact is that no one watches them at Mount Smart. They've tried moving games to Whangarei, Hamilton, not much success. Look, I think that ideally, Moana Pacifica being a Pacific Islands team, they really need to be playing their home games in the Pacific Islands. If costs weren't an issue, that would be happening. But the fact is that it is very expensive to be playing games in Samoa and Tonga, flights and all that. So for the foreseeable future, they're going to have to play in New Zealand. But I think they certainly have to look at how they... where they play the game. I think playing at Mount Smart, they surely can't do that for the foreseeable future unless they are absolutely certainly going to get at least a quarter of the crowd as the Warriors, or when the Auckland Black Knights, the new A-League team starts. So, and I've sort of mentioned this in the past. Why not go? They need to be playing at much smaller grounds, possibly grounds, like grounds with the high Pacific. Look, I know there's been issues. Like Porirua, for example, like playing out in Porirua Park, I know that Canes might have some issues. But having said that, I guess the Chiefs let let Moana Pacifica play in Hamilton. The Blues let Moana Pacifica play in Whangarei. So why can't they play in Porirua? And I guess, if the other option is Pukekohe, which is much smaller than Mount Smart, but again, it's not too far from South Auckland and the heart of the Pacifica community, the largest Pacifica community outside in the world, actually, and certainly outside the Pacific Islands. So there are a lot of things to come. I think it's still the prognosis is sort of guarded grim for Moana Pacifica. I'm still not convinced that they'll be financially sustainable, and there's a lot of changes. They're losing Sekone Kepu, of course, but yeah, look, I mean, as a pathway for Pacific players, it is certainly a great idea, but I think a lot more needs to be done to ensure that Moana Pacifica isn't just a fad and it doesn't fade out like what the Sunwolves did. All right, so we'll talk about the quarterfinals now, which is pretty much the rest of the comp, really. It's a bit like the NBA Finals. We'll start off with the Friday game. Chiefs Reds, arguably on paper, this should be the most competitive game, given where these teams ended up on the table. It's in Hamilton. Look, the Chiefs. It is bizarre. The Chiefs have had a funny season. I mean, look, Damian McKenzie's played as well. There's been Cortez Ratima's played well. Luke Jacobson's been outstanding. A couple of good, Naro has been great. And Sean Stevenson, while he's not scored as many tries as he did last season, he's still he's been a vital part of that Chiefs backline. But it just kind of feels like the Chiefs have kind of gone backwards this season. I don't know what the factors are. I mean, okay, they've had Tupou Vai's out with injury, but they still have a really decent squad. But for some reason, like defensive wise, they seem to have gone a bit backwards. And then and when D-Mac's not on the field, the backline doesn't quite function as well. But having said that, I think the Reds. The Reds are definitely the proverbial, team on the rise, where they're very, very good at their home back in Brisbane at Lang Park. But when they travel, they're just not quite the same team. I think the Reds will give the Chiefs a couple of issues early on. And I think you have to keep your eye out on their loose forwards. But I think the Chiefs I think the Chiefs in Hamilton with what should be a decent crowd will just about get home in this one. And on to the second quarterfinal, Hurricanes Rebels. This looks set. It will almost certainly be the Rebels' last ever game for the foreseeable future. Probably. Probably last game ever, to be quite honest. And I think certainly Hurricanes fans will be hoping it's the case, not because they don't like the Rebels, but it's more like if the Rebels won, that would be a massive disappointment for for the Hurricanes, who've undoubtedly been at least the top team, one off, if not the best team in the comp this year, and they're at home. Ticket sales remain on. I haven't really checked how the ticket sales are tracking, although I dare say it's gonna be a good crowd, but it won't be the best, particularly depending on. I have a feeling that Hurricanes fans might very well be saving up for the semis and possibly now a final. Of course, now that they finished number one. I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say. I think the Canes, if the Rebels did win this, it would be one of the biggest upsets. Canes, but I think the Hurricanes will win this by. I dare say it's going to be it could very well be a hiding to the Hurricanes hand out to the Rebels, which be a bit of a sad but somewhat fitting way for the Rebels to end their rather forgettable time in Super Rugby. And we got to go up north to Eden Park, Blues v Drua. This could be a very entertaining, more entertaining game than people think. Look, I think the Blues will win this one fairly comfortably. Fiji and Drua though have some very exciting players, but I just don't. I think discipline's going to catch them out, and I think just quality wise, the Blues defense and all that. I think while they will get a good test early on, the Fiji and Drua just do not have the endurance, and I think the Blues will comfortably thrash the Fiji and Drua. Who, by the way, the Drua have had a really really good season, and to back up. They made the playoffs for the first time ever, last season. To back it up again, despite losing a lot of players to overseas, more lucrative contracts, it's a splendid job. Looking forward to seeing what Glenn Jackson can do. Of course, he's, not just an ex-ref. He's a former New Zealand Maori player. Very, very, a player who I think in another time could very well have been an All Black, but I think I think with Glenn Jackson, I think maybe they might be able to work on discipline, get a few more tips on how to, get those cards or those penalty count down. Because Fiji and let's be honest, we need Fiji and Drua to do well. They've been the brightest spark in Super Rugby Pacifics in the last couple of seasons, amidst all the gloom, negative stories about declining crowds, TV viewership, and the plight of Australian rugby that never seems to end. So we need Drua to be competitive, but I think the Blues will just be too good for Fiji and Drua. So we come to the quarter-final. It is Brumbies versus the Highlanders. This will be the only game in Australia. I think I'm not while I will have my Highlanders hat on, and I think given I like to point back to a different a couple of years ago back when Australian playing the Brumbies was actually kind of like a free ticket to the next round. But the Brumbies are a good team. Whether to win the comp, I don't think they quite have it to win the whole thing. They're gonna really need some amazing shocks to actually be able to win the whole thing, and that means having to play the whole playoffs in Canberra. But that's looking very very unlikely. And by the way, obviously I'm tipping the Brumbies though. The Highlanders have had a great season, a much better season than last, but I think they're still pretty much, again, it's a young team that's on the rise. And I could see the Brumbies thrashing the Highlanders and so on, sadly. Look, Brumbies have a really, really solid team. I think Tom Wright at fullback has got to be the best fullback this season. While he's been helped, Will Jordan's been injured, but Tom, I think even if Will Jordan had been playing with the Crusaders, I think you have to take Tom Wright would have been still my fullback of the season. He's just been absolutely outstanding, and he should be the 15 for the Wallabies. The rest of the team speaks for itself. Expect a couple of those tries to be from lineouts and rolling mauls, because that's why would you stop? Why would the Brumbies not do that? That's their greatest secret weapon. I guess maybe you should talk about this next week, depending on what happens. But Brumbies need to win this, and then I guess it sees what happens in the semi-final. I think it looks like they could be. It looks like they'll be playing the Blues. In that case, that's going to be a bit of a struggle. They might. But we shall see. So those are my thoughts on the quarterfinals, and really, it's a look back at the other Super Rugby teams that didn't quite make it, I guess. Look, this is, there's no bonus points here. It's knockout rugby, so yeah, what more can you get? So look, what are your thoughts on this? Are there going to be any upsets, or are we going to see a all New Zealand final, which is looking like it's going to be the case? If you like this video, feel free to like, and don't forget to subscribe.